Alright, so when we are dealing with elbow pain, there are of course a few different things that could be going on, but we're going to start looking at one of the most common ones that I come across. And it's experienced a lot when people are training arms in general, but we're going to focus today on biceps. Before we get there, biomechanics. And it's something called the carrying angle. So if I just stand here with my arms turned out, what you'll notice is my upper arm and my lower arm aren't perfectly aligned in a straight line. There's actually a slight deviation outwards where my wrist bone or my forearm kinks out towards my thumb. Right, like your body was designed in that way so that when you walk in a natural gait cycle, your arms don't end up smashing into your hips. And this is where we start to encounter some of the common issues with unnecessary wear and tear accumulating through the elbow joint, particularly when we're choosing a lot of fixed bar exercises such as a barbell curl. Is you try to tuck your elbows in and curl straight up, keeping your forearms as close to parallel as possible and your elbows jammed into your sides. Now, this is honestly not causing me any pain or discomfort at all. I am feeling my biceps. It's not a terrible exercise, but it's more about, are there better options out there? And what's happening from a biomechanical? Yes, because I'm trying to force my hands and my wrists and my elbows into this parallel fixed plane of movements. Whereas my arms, because of my natural carrying angle, they want to be more out in this position. More of these shearing forces traveling through the elbow. So your elbow is what we call a hinge joint. And it works, as the name suggests, very much like a hinge, like this hinge right here. So designed to open and close, extend and flex, or open and close. This would be what you would see in a typical door as well. So if I just open and close that door, you can see there's not a lot of wear and tear happening. There is over time going to be a slight deterioration to the joint just through the aging process, of course. But for all intents and purposes, it's going to be completely fine. Now, what if I was pushing down on the hinge as I did this? What if I was pushing up on the hinge as I did this? It's still going to open and close. It's still going to move just fine, but you can very easily understand the fact there's going to be a lot more forces going through this structure that will contribute more to this wear and tear. And in this context, I would say it's completely avoidable and it's completely unnecessary if you have to go through this kind of wear and tear. A couple of different options available are, of course, you would come across EZ bars like this, which allow you to now put your elbows into a slightly more natural position, and that's why it is a lot more comfortable. But even then, EZ bars may not be perfectly angled for you. In general, women, because they have a narrower shoulder structure and a slightly wider hip structure, they tend to have much bigger carrying angles. But even within women and within males, you'll see big differences, and you'll see big differences in their overall mobility. If you're experiencing elbow pain, or if you want to avoid any unnecessary wear and tear over time, is to start to look more at unilateral exercises or using implements that allow for more freedom at the elbows and the wrists. So instead of doing barbells, we just do dumbbells instead. Instead of doing barbells, we might do single cables as well. And then it's also about choosing the dumbbells, choosing the cables, choosing the unilateral exercises, but also setting them up in a way that allows for a more natural movement. Bringing my elbows into this flexion position, my arms actually don't want to travel straight up by my sides like this. They want to travel in a more natural plane across my body, in this converging plane. So what this means for us when we're setting up exercises in terms of the cable width, we shouldn't be setting them up so your arms are traveling on train tracks, but we should have the cable slightly wider and pulling on a converging axis. Is the cables are starting wide, my hands start wide, and as I curl in, they're coming in closer towards my body. Based on your mobility, based on your structure, based on how your body's put together, would then dictate how wide or how narrow your elbows have to be most comfortable, and that would then dictate how wide or how narrow you set the cables up. And if you didn't have this cable set up that was completely adjustable like I do, you could of course just do the single arm. So this could be in a single station, either sitting down like this, or it could also be standing up, and you just simply reposition your body. And this is probably the simplest way to go about training your biceps. I love to use the cables, although this could also be done with dumbbells instead. But the reason why I like the cables is it provides a very, very even resistance profile, whereas challenging my biceps through the entire contractile range. If you want to preserve your joints, if you want to build your muscles as easily as possible and help to maybe reduce a lot of the pain you might be experiencing, it's a very, very simple switch. Switch from barbells to dumbbells and take into consideration this converging plane of movement and having to reposition your body if you're using, say, dumbbells to allow for a more natural plane of movement that you're not forcing your body into.